power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
The Band Blaster wheels and motors are now available from bandblasters.com. Obtain the power of Band Blasters for any of your flywheel builds. Check out Band Blasters by following the link in the description and use code BOOMSTICK10 for 10% off your order at checkout. Whether you need 150 FPS with a high rate of fire, or 200 FPS with a low rate of fire, or maybe you need a shield buster, or a double shield piercer, or maybe you just want to tag everything in front of you. The Old Fusion Designs Quik has you covered. Greetings audience, I'm Boomstick, and today we're going to be looking at the Quik from Old Fusion Designs. The Quik is a 3D printed full auto flywheel blaster with a mag and grip taking angled talons. The Quik mag release can be used to gravity drop the mag, or you can manually pull the mag to remove it. I'm using the expanded battery tray to house my small battery, and I highly recommend it so you don't have to fight to make everything fit inside. The files for the Quik are available from OFD's Etsy, and the fly core can be found for free on their GitHub. As always, links to everything will be linked down below in the description. Now, the Quik is built around the fly core, and the fly core is something designed by Old Fusion Designs to enable us to have different styles of builds over the same basic core. So the core has your motors, your flywheels, your mag release, all of that's inside the fly core itself. The only thing not actually in the fly core is the switches, because then you can move where you want the switches to be. Now, the Quik is currently the only design using the fly core system as of right now, but I can tell you that that is also in the works. I'm actually beta testing the Meowser along with a bunch of other people for Old Fusion Design, so you'll probably see that in the future as well, which again uses the same exact fly core system, except that takes straight mags, whereas this takes angled. OFD has also said they're looking into straight talon mags for mag and grip designs, but I will say, as I've said with other things, if you want a mag and grip blaster, you gotta at least be using the angled talon mags. The Quik is also capable of taking Nightingale mags, however, from my experience, they don't keep up well with the high rate of fire due to the smaller mag designs. Some darts feed better in the Nightingale mags than others, so I like just sticking with the angled talons because they're a bit more reliable in my opinion. Now let's talk about this grenade launcher on the bottom. This is the micro booper. Like the Quik, the micro booper barrels are also available on OFD's Etsy. There are options for Mega XL, Double Mega, 10 half darts, or 9 hyper. They simply screw on to the base and you're ready to go. It takes these 40 max airsoft shells filled with green gas that you can fill up right from the bottom. Keep in mind that green gas is flammable, so please be safe while filling these up. They are a single load and fire, meaning you pull the trigger, it's emptying out the entire container. So you're not going to get multiple shots with these, but you can carry a couple of extras with you in order to just pop it out and pop a new one in. I have had varied success running this on the field with Mega XL, because sometimes their accuracy is not great. So long distance, you might not hit anything, but you could have a fun long distance shot and you might hit somebody. Hard to say. Obviously, this would be classified along with anything else HPA related, so if your field doesn't allow HPA, they probably won't allow the micro booper shells. But having this super compact system just right on the bottom of your Quik, and you can just boop, fire and unload, it's so much fun to use. Now, I will say you want to make sure you're pressing all the way, a firm press at the back, because you are releasing it. So much like the Titan and other air blasters I've found, if you release slowly, you're not getting that full impact of the air, whereas if you do a firm release, you'll get a nice big burst. That's just been my experience running around with the micro booper. But if your field doesn't allow anything HPA, you could always throw a Cook Cousin on the bottom of the Quik, because I've found that also keeps that nice slim profile while still giving you that underslung shield piercer breaker, whatever it is you need. Now, I was introduced to the Quik at PhoneCom, where I got to meet LumaFusion Designs, who was at the Detroit Dart Talk table, who happened to be my neighbor. And as soon as I picked it up and fired it, I knew that this had to come home with me. So this one was actually built by LumaFusion Designs themselves, but the Band Blaster one was built by me. Also, big shout out to Band Blasters, who is just a fantastic person to work with. So definitely check them out if you don't already know about them. They have a lot of really nice flywheel cages, which give you some amazing performance for a single stage. Now let's talk about printing. Depending on your printer bed side, I believe with my Prusa Mark III's, I'm able to print an entire Quik all in one go. Now, some of the pieces do require supports, but overall, it's a simple printing, and I actually highly recommend if you have one battery compartment for aesthetics, for how you want the blaster to look, and you could have a second one that's completely orange for safety. Now, I went ahead and did a color swap in mine, but if your fields don't think that's going to be enough orange, you might just want to have a second battery tray that's all orange, just for that extra bit. Now, the Quik is a dual stage trigger, meaning you half pull and it revs, and a full pull gives you a firing. Obviously, spin down takes a bit of a while for it to wind down, so they are a little bit on the noisy side, especially depending on what motors you're running and what wheels you're running. But since we're talking about the printing, let's talk about the fact that you can build the Quik to pretty much any FPS that you want. OFD has options for full-size wheels, Flywheel the World wheels, Hurricane wheels, so you could build this to literally any FPS that you need. I'm building one for HVZ for when the HVZ season starts back up. I've got my Band Blaster set up, so I've got the Band Blaster motor and wheels in this Quik. I've got, I believe, a Valkyrie and Twilight wheels in this one. So I've essentially got a 150 FPS Quik, a 200 FPS Quik, and I'm building a 120 FPS Quik. So I'm going to end up having 3 different Quiks, all for different kinds of games. And of course, if you're wanting something as more of a backup, I highly recommend the Flywheel the World setup, because it'll give you a much slimmer frame as opposed to having these big old wheels sticking out the sides. Which, if you know me, I'm not a fan of horizontal flywheels, and I will say that it does take away from the aesthetic of this blaster, but the performance of these blasters makes up for that aesthetic that I don't care for, as we'll call it. Now let's talk about building it. This blaster uses heat sinks, and I've said it once, I'll say it again, more blasters need to use heat sinks. These things are so easy to deal with when you're just going into heat sinks. Again, more people out there, start using heat sinks. It's just a better system for a lot of things. And obviously with any flywheel blaster, you do have to deal with wiring. I didn't have that much trouble with the wiring on mine. It's a little finicky in places, I'll call it, just for wire management and all that, especially if you're not using the right size wire. The Quik is designed to use 18 and 20 gauge wire, I believe, in places, and I used 18 gauge over the whole thing. So it was a bit cramped in places because I wasn't using the right size wire, but that is on me. So keep that in mind when you want to build one of these Quiks. You're not going to get 16 gauge wire to fit in there, so don't try it. Or you do, I don't know. I'm not your boss. Do whatever you want, but I recommend following the instructions and doing 18 or 20 gauge wire. And depending on how you want to build it, the Quik also has a nice little spot for a voltmeter. Or if you don't feel like dealing with that, has a nice little spot to cover the hole for the voltmeter. So if you want a voltmeter, you can. If you don't, they got that covered too. Now let's talk about comfort. As I've said in the past, Blasters with magging grips should definitely be using the angled talons because they are a much more comfortable grip. It's obviously a little bit thicker than my zinc, but overall, I'll say not by a whole lot. And the zinc does use proprietary mags in that regard, so obviously that's kind of like my standard for the most comfortable grip, but it's a pretty close second, I might say. Very comfortable as far as flywheel blasters go, especially for mag and grip designs. That's enough gabbing. Let's take these out to some games. I'm going to be taking my Band Blaster Quik to APOC, which is a 300 FPS war. I'll also be taking it to Maryland Nerf Herders, which has a 200 FPS cap. And I'll be taking my 150 FPS Quik to Southern Maryland House of Nerf, which has a 150 FPS cap. So, let's go, shall we? At APOC, I had planned on using several different blasters, but after using the Band Blaster Quik in the first game, I couldn't put it down. There's just something so satisfying about having a full auto 200 FPS pistol. And while I was outranged by a lot of the high-powered springers, I found that the compact form and accurate shots really helped make up that ground. For Maryland Nerf Herders, it was a lot of turtling and taking more precise shots, which I did rather well with. I do have a tendency of kind of aiming as I go, so I could probably get more hits with less shots if I practiced more.
Oh, Jeremy!
Using the 150 FPS Quik was a dream. The high rate of fire led to a lot of mag per tags, but it was just too much fun to slow down. The higher rate of fire is definitely something you're going to want to practice getting control over, but you'll definitely have a good time. Now let's talk about my final thoughts. If you can't already tell from the way that I've been talking about the whole video, I love this blaster and its platform, considering I'm going to end up with 3 of them once I get my HVZ1 built, which I do plan on showing that off here. Won't be a whole review, but you're going to want to see it. Now, obviously, the biggest pro is the fact that you can build this to whatever FPS you need it to be. There's no, like, tuning that goes into it to be like, well, it's a little over my FPS cap, so I gotta tune it down. No, you literally just build it to whatever you need it to be, and it's amazing. And this blaster is really the best full auto pistol that I've ever used. It is fantastic. As you guys saw from the gameplay footage, it did amazing at pretty much any FPS I needed it to. It's comfortable, it's powerful, it's compact. What else do you need from it? Now, if I did have to say there was a con, I would say that the biggest con is probably the fact that, at least with the full-size wheels, it's not very holsterable. Although, OFD is working on a holster for it. So, keep an eye out for that. But yeah, even with that, these bulky flywheels on the side, I mean, unless they go on your leg a little bit forward, that could work, but as of right now, there's not a current holsterable option for these, so if you wanted to run this as a secondary or a backup, you might have to get a little creative just because of these big wheels. But again, if you're running the Flywheel the World setup, you might not have that problem. So, a minor con over how amazing this blaster is, and again, this isn't a secondary, this is a primary. Now let's take a look at the scoreboard. I think we're going to put it right there. Yeah. This is probably the most fun and most competitive blaster for me that I've used. It's so good. And the fact that you can build it yourself to whatever specs you need it to be, there's really no beating this blaster as far as flywheels, in my opinion, go. You can shove as many extra special bits as you want into a blaster, but this one just performs like a beast.
Thank you all for watching, and special thank you to all my lovely patrons out there. And if you'd like to support the channel or any of the hobbyists mentioned in this video, check out the links in the description below. Don't forget, patrons of the $5 level or higher get custom stickers from yours truly. But if you don't feel like supporting the channel in that way, you can also check out some of my merch where we have patches, shirts, hoodies, and more. Definitely leave me a comment letting me know what you think and what you'd like to see in the future. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to see what we're going to do next. Thank you again for watching. I've been Boomstick, and I'm out.